You're welcome to the discussion segment on Nationalism and You, and we are still on this morning on ITV, Independent Televisions, broadcasting live from Mpape Hill here in Abuja. I am your host, Ebenezer Oyetakin. We will be taking a critical look at the Ekiti governorship election, vis-a-vis our democratic expectations. And with me in the house to take a look at this topic is Ambassador Dr. Major Abu. He is the National Publicity Secretary of the New Nigeria People's Party. Nationalism and You.
It is my responsibility to build my country because I have none other than it.
Very well. Did your party participated in that election in Ekiti State?
Yes, we did.
What are your experiences? Or what were your experiences?
Well, as a party, we'll only be speaking to you as a political party while awaiting the reports, because several agencies, monitored the election, and as is usual, what is expected is that at the end of every election, they would come out with their reports. But as a political party, at the interim, while our party is looking at a detailed report about what happened, we are still expecting the state chairman, the state leadership of the party to give us a report. And from there, the Directorate of Information will also look critically at that report and then advise the party on the way forward. But at the interim, based on the physical observations we made, yes, it seems as if our democracy is still being threatened by the influence of money, because what we saw is a situation where the votes were being bought massively, and you take advantage of the poverty level of the people, and then I do understand that votes were going for as much as 10,000, 15,000 and all of that, and the implication is that, like we have always said, our future continues to be mortgaged, because when these votes are bought, the tendency is that you would have wrong candidates, imagine, as elected candidates, and in such circumstances, you can be sure that the required dividends of democracy will be delivered. So the threat, I think the major threat and the take home from this is that our democracy is still being threatened by the influence of money. But one of the things, the positive side of it is that it's obvious that Nigerians are now interrogating the process because questions are being asked. Let us forget about the fact that poverty drove the electorates into going to look for money. One of the things we took away from that election is that Nigerians are becoming increasingly interested in what the process would be. And it's a good one. On the part of INEC, yes, they did well. The machines were up working. The phasing out of the use of incidence forms, created room for these votes to be properly cast. And what you got as results from that election represents the actual votes cast. It's just that those votes were cast under the influence of money. That should be the challenge, and we are worried about it. But going forward, we will continue to appeal to Nigerians to do what is right.
In your opinion, is the system, the Nigerian system, now talking about INEC, talking about security forces, talking about even government, do you see determination to correct these abnormalities of monetization of elections and vote buying sooner or later?
Well, one challenge we have as Africans is that when we come out with policies, we don't seem to do long-term projection as to how to curtail the negative impacts of those policies. I remember clearly when the idea of introducing electronic voting came. That was during the days of Tahiru Jega as chairman of INEC. Incidentally, I was the national secretary of the Nigerian People's Party then, and I was actively involved in this whole process. There were a lot of studies, there were a lot of trips, both within and outside some other African countries like Kenya, Namibia, and the rest, where they have some semblance of electronics, introduced in their voting system. There were a series of visits, South Africa and all of that. And when we conceived the idea, what some of us were looking at the long term is that Now that it's going to be difficult for people to write results, now that it's going to be difficult for people to vote except the machines, properly accredit them, there would be, Nigerians are very creative people, so they were going to go the other way. But a lot of us didn't know that it was going to be result in outright buying of votes. So we didn't envisage this. But one of the things we were very sure of is that as creative as Nigerians would be, definitely they were going to look for how to sabotage that very beautiful system, which we felt was going to be, very, very effective in checking electoral malfeasance and all of that. But unfortunately for us, it has resulted in this menace of vote buying. And two reasons are responsible for this. First, like I said, is poverty. Then two, the unaccountable nature of leadership we provide for people. When people come to solicit for your votes, they get the votes and leave, they don't return to you. The thinking of the electorate is that after all, whether we like it or not, our votes will not count. And when he comes and solicits for these votes and goes back, we don't see him again. So the only thing we can do is to grab whatever is there for us, and then we'll cast the votes for them and go. And maybe directly answering your question, it's a challenge that is not for now. I think that's going to be the biggest threat in 2023, because like I said, we didn't envisage it, so we're not able to put in place checks to ensure that it doesn't overwhelm us. So for 2023, it's going to be a challenge. But of course, Nigerians are very determined people. I believe that heading towards 2027, now that we have been able to identify it as the only challenge facing the process, we'll be able to deal with it effectively. So short term, the next 1 year is going to be difficult. We saw it in Ekiti, and I'm sure it's going to be prevalent also in Osun State, and then spill over to the general election. But 2027, yes, we still have time. We're going to work on it as leaders of political parties and ensure that we don't get consumed. Our process, our democracy does not get consumed by that menace.
Are some parties guilty of the vote buying, or all the parties guilty of the vote buying?
Do all the parties have the same level of resources that the one or two that are guilty of this have? My director.
No, but the truth of the matter is that if you give 200 and another give 10,000 naira, it is concurrent.
No. I think you are speaking as a journalist. I'm speaking to you as a field man. I can tell you that apart from the two so-called dominant parties, the other parties do not waste their resources like that. If you go to the field, forget about what you are hearing in the newsroom here. No other party buys votes apart from the two so-called dominant parties. That's the PDP and the APC. They're the ones buying votes. Even APGA, that has a state under their control, they are not involved in this vote buying. And that's why you notice that Soludo managed to come out with a very slim margin in the Anambra election, because they were not prepared to buy votes. The second side of it is, where is even the resources to be used in buying these votes? These people buy votes. You can imagine putting 100 voters on the queue, and you are giving them 15,000 naira. That's a lot of money. Where will NNPP have that kind of money? Where will APM have that kind of money? Where will APP have that kind of money? It's not possible. It's only those who have formed government at various levels, who have had taken advantage of our common patrimony.
Regarding Ekiti election, this social economic rights project, SERAP, is calling for prosecution of the three frontline political parties over vote buying. Do you share this view?
Yes, of course, whatever would sanitize the system.
That's PDP, SDP, APC.
Yes, why not? Whatever would sanitize the system is what I will always vote for. That's the truth. Because whether you and I like it or not, we have a future to bequeath for our children. If we leave this malfeasance to continue, our children will be asking us, even if we are no more, history will not be kind to us. And they will be asking questions. What did our daddies do when they were on the stage to help us check against this? So, like I always say, somebody has to be used as a scapegoat. Somebody has to be used as an example. Somebody has to be used as a deterrent to others. We cannot continue to accept this. We can't continue to take this. Of course, the challenge, like we always know, is that once you're in power, you just feel that you're above the law and all of that. Who will go and take on APC? Who will go and take on PDP? Maybe SDP would be easier for them to take on. But how do you take on SDP without taking on APC that is in government? Who is going to do that? Who appoints the leaders of those organizations that are saddled with the responsibility of checking these malfeasance in terms of, for instance, this vote buying? If you are reducing it to an assignment for the EFCC, the question is who appoints the EFCC chairman? Is it not the government of the day? The present EFCC chairman was appointed by this present APC-led government. And who is he going to challenge as chairman of EFCC? So, but then what we are saying is that whether anybody likes it or not, we'll continue to put them in the court of public opinion. And we'll continue to push them to the wall like we are doing now. We'll continue to remind them that even though you will not allow the right thing to be done, we'll continue to get Nigerians to understand that you are the one that is sabotaging the system. So outrightly, if I have to react to what you just said, I will always be on the side of this idea of ensuring that those who are involved in vote buying are, very timely prosecuted. I've listened to Festus Okoye say on air so many times that they made some arrests from this Ekiti debacle. I want to call it debacle because what I saw there was quite embarrassing. They've made some arrests and we're waiting. But like we have always seen, the other day Festus was on air where he said that they've secured high-profile convictions, like that professor in Akwa Ibom that was convicted and all of that. These were people who sabotaged the system itself. We are talking of those who go with bags of money to go and buy these votes, to go and exchange money for this. How many of them have they been able to catch? When we were talking of unbundling INEC, for instance, we were saying that we needed an independent body, other than the EFCC or whatever, that will be solely responsible for prosecution of those who are involved directly in electoral malpractices. And even as I speak to you now, I'm not sure we are there yet. So it's still a challenge, but then the earlier the better, so that we'll be able to, put our electoral process on a very clean slate, so that our children will be happy with us when we are no more on the stage.
I am very aware that you are a strategic member of the Inter-Party Advisory Council, and with the mandate of that organization and your involvement, would you say that we have enough and substantial legislations to deal with the issues of vote buying that can criminalize the issue of vote buying and get the executive or the security forces to act decisively against it? Would you say there is enough legislation?
Nothing is enough for a challenge that is as potent as what we're talking about. What I'm trying to say is that it's always a work in progress. But I can tell you that we have, made substantial progress in that direction. Like you rightly have said, I was part of the formation of the Inter-Party Advisory Council and have played roles with every successive leadership in place, even as I speak to you now. Of course, last year's election, I was elected as a publicity secretary, although I'm not active there because I spend more time now, dealing with the challenges of gunning for government in 2023, a Kwankwaso-led government at the center in 2023. So I am more preoccupied dealing with issues bordering on my party than on IPAC. But then I can tell you that on the way to the recent amendment of the Electoral Act, which is now Electoral Act 2022 as amended, we made a lot of contributions. We made a lot of interventions. We had series of consultations, series of seminars and conferences, midwifed by sister bodies like the IRI and all of that. And we tried to, reduce the level of this malfeasance. Part of it is this issue of the use of money and all of that. And then we also tried to sanitize the processes of nomination of candidates. If you have gone through the 2022 Electoral Act, you discover very clearly that it is now a richer document than the 2010, 20 whatever version that was in use before the 2022. This one is broad, dealing with all the existential threats, dealing with all the threats dealing with all the challenges that we have practically seen the process face. So in terms of legislation, yes, I think we've done well in that direction. But then you also need to know that as humans, especially as black people, laws are just there. A lot of people do not seem to want to be conformed by the provisions of those laws. So it's a challenge. We have a lot of beautiful laws in this country, and the electoral side is not an exception. But the question is the willpower of those who are saddled with the responsibility of ensuring that these laws are adhered to. The willpower to ensure that it is properly adhered to is one. Then two, our thinking. As a black man, especially a hungry person, who will always tell you, what are you talking? You're talking about law. When I'm talking about, I'm not happy with the government. I am, almost being extinguished with hunger and all of that, and you're talking about law. If you go to Lagos, you go to the slums in Abuja and all some of these places, you will see that laws mean nothing to Nigerians. Because what you hear from them is, why are you talking about law? When that the government should do for me, I'm not getting it and all of that. It takes a right frame of mind for a citizen to want to obey the laws. Why you see in Europe people are guided by laws effectively is because they are happy with their government, they are okay, and so they are happy to perform their patriotic duties of ensuring that laws are kept and adhered to. So two angles to this issue of laws. Yes, we have enough legislation. The challenges are the willpower of those who are paid to ensure that those laws are strictly adhered to. Is it there? Is the welfare of those people okay and all of that? Then the second side is the level of preparedness or willingness of the citizens to abide by those laws. These are the two challenges. But in terms of adequate legislations, yes, we are good to go. The 2022 Electoral Act is very clear. It's adequate, to take care of all of these malfeasance.
Who, in your opinion, taking into considerations that INEC is on the ground, they witnessed this exchange of money for votes, security forces, DSS, police, and even militaries that participated in providing security, most of them witnessed all of this exchange of money for votes. Now, in your opinion, vividly, on whose shoulder rests the responsibility to correct this if we accept it that it is an abnormality that is casting a bad aspersion on our democracy?
Which organization has the responsibility to check financial crimes? The assignment of the police on an election day is just to ensure that there is peace and people are orderly and prepared to cast their votes.
Are the EFCC monitoring election?
We are not saying they should monitor election, but it is their responsibility to ensure that all financial crimes are checked. The implication is not that they are going out on election day to monitor election, but they are going out on election day to deal with culprits, people who are found to be committing financial crimes. So there's a difference between going to monitor election and then going to nip a crime that is being committed.
Going to sniff.
Exactly. So their job is not to go out on election day to monitor election, but to go out on election day to nose around for those who probably may have come with Ghana must go loaded with money to come and give in exchange for votes. So for now, until the Electoral Offences Tribunal is established, until there is an enabling legislation for it and is established, for now it is the responsibility of the EFCC broadly to check all financial crimes. And so you can't absorb them of this. They are expected to, on election day, go out to check financial crimes. So it is their responsibility. But they are supposed to work, in, what do I call it, in unity with other security agencies. The INEC is the driver that day. So INEC should be the one to say, okay, we notice that this is what is going on here. Will the appropriate agencies come to deal with it? because they are the drivers on that day. Every other security agency are just there, to complement what they are doing. But then all of them have to work together. The EFCC, the police, the army. Remember, we have always said that the military has no business going near voting centers on any election day. We have always said that, but we have a government that even when you speak, sometimes they don't even want to hear what you're talking about. But ask yourself, anywhere in the world, in other democracies, the military has no business coming out on election day because their presence intimidates the voters. And these are people that are trained to deal brutally with every situation. What the police would deal with, in a civil way, the military won't do that. And when they come and begin to do it the military way, the tendency is for others to want to, even those who probably are waiting to vote, they'll be so scared and they want to go away. And these are some of the reasons why we have always insisted that the military has no business going near polling centers on election day. But what we are saying is that they have to work, to ensure that this is checked, and they have to give all the enabling support to the EFCC to ensure that these issues of use of money on election day is a thing of the past.
Well, many Nigerians we disagree with you that in our own climb and with the security challenges we are facing as a nation, the presence of military, even when they don't come close to the voting place and the rest of it, in a focal state where election is taking place, might be necessary. One, because the influence of monetization can lead to exchange of violence and what you call it, surgery and things of that nature. Anybody who can mobilize billion in order to come and buy votes will also be able to mobilize what do you call it, a force of violence to probably want to protect the money or fight for one other thing. What's your take on this?
What is the responsibility of the military? Is to check against external aggression. So maintenance of internal peace, it's not their responsibility, it's the responsibility of the police.
Do we have enough police?
Well, that is another issue. That is another issue. But what I'm saying is, by all standards, by international best practices, civil peace, maintenance of civil peace is exclusively the responsibility of the police. The army, the military, whether Navy or Air Force or whatever, their job is to secure the territorial integrity of the country. What it means is that they protect the country against external aggression. So it is absurd, and we will continue to say it with all emphasis and with respect to whoever will want to hear it. It's absurd to deploy military. Look, let me tell you, in exceptional situations like maybe Boko Haram prone areas, you understand, maybe you are going to Machina in Yobe, or maybe you are going to Gamborungala in Borno for election. Yes, they are already deployed there, trying to maintain peace and all of that. There's nothing wrong with bringing them. That is in very exceptional situations. But what business does the army have coming to polling units in Amak? What business do they have coming to polling units in Ado-Ekiti? What business do they have coming to polling units in Opoku local government area of Benue State? They don't have that business, except in places where it is established there are huge security challenges and the army is already deployed there. That could be understood. Did you remember
Ekiti? Was it Ekiti 2014 or 2013 that produced Fayose, where hooded security people, including military, were massively, which led to even a sack or retirement of one Major General Momo and things of that nature. The situation of the country is not as volatile as this, but because of an election and some people just want to make sure that the election is won by all means and the rest of it, military were massively mobilized. Is the presence of military in our political process the problem of the military or the problem of the people in government, the people in power?
Very good. You have answered yourself, because I was going to tell I was going to tell you the peculiar negative interests of politicians is what results in situations like that. who did the assessment, the security assessment, before arriving at those challenges, those envisaged challenges? Who did it? The government probably may have commissioned one or two people to say nose around and tell us something. That could be very subjective intelligence. There may be intelligence that, there may be information that were non-existing. But because they had entrenched interests, maybe one candidate was primed to win, they didn't want him to win. Maybe one candidate was clearly at a disadvantage, they wanted to put him at advantage by all means. So somebody did that study. That study may not be objective enough to have warranted deployment of those soldiers. So at the end of the day, you just said it now. Why was the Major General retired? Because certain things went wrong that were not correct. So ab initio, deploying those soldiers was not even the right decision. If it was right, there wouldn't have been any reason for anybody to have been relieved of his or her appointment and all of that. Under whatever guise, my brother, I must tell you as a Democrat that except where there are threats that you can physically see, like we have in Yobe, in Borno, maybe in the creeks in Yenagoa, maybe in the creeks in Akwa Ibom, where you have threats that you can see. Don't let anybody tell you there is a threat, because that assessment may not be objective. But where you see practical threats, fine. You can say, okay, let the military give backup to the police and other agencies to be able to do their job. So the case of Ekiti you are talking about, I can tell you as a politician that it was prompted by maybe one or two people who wanted certain things done in that election. And that's why at the end of the day heads had to roll, because they had no business going there, an issue. But they went there, and because they were not supposed to be there, a lot of things went wrong. And that's why a whole Major General in the military had to pay for it. You know, you can see how terrible that would be. Somebody who has risen from the ranks to become Major General, he paid, maybe innocently, for what he never knew. But because those who provided the so-called intelligence that warranted the deployment of the military didn't do an objective study, and so they were not able to properly advise the government on whether the military was needed or not. So these are some of the challenges we are facing. But under any guise, I'm telling you, except where there are practical threats, the military has no business on any election day at all. That I can assure you.
The choice of democracy itself by a nation is a choice of a rule of law. Is this monetization of process not negating the viability of our democracy, the faithfulness of our democracy? And is it not rendering our democracy aberrative?
The truth is that whatever sabotages the process will always derail it. Because once you sabotage something, you are asking that thing to go off the rail. So if the use of money, which you and I have now been able to identify as a huge challenge, if we all agree there is a challenge, then you should know that it's negating, you know, and then undermining our democracy. It's undermining our democracy. There's no doubt about that. One, the choices made under the influence of money can never be sound choices. Wrong people will always be thrown up. The man, the highest bidder, whether he is the man that believes in the tenets of democracy, whether he is the man that believes in the welfare of those he's coming to lead, whether he is the man that thinks it is incumbent on him to deliver the evidence of democracy to his people. The choice that is made, the person who has hugely used money to influence the decisions of the electorate could turn out not to be the man who believes in all of this. The actual thing that democracy, you know, looks out for is who is most acceptable to the people, who has the people at mind, who is prepared to lead, who is prepared to deliver the evidence of democracy. Those who are prepared for that. The man who is prepared for that may turn out not to be the man who has the resources to throw around an election day. The man who has the resources to throw around an election day in form of vote buying may not be the man who believes in the welfare of the people. But he's going to have his way because he has deployed resources. When that happens, is that still democracy? Yes, it's democracy in quotes. But is it democracy that the people can point to say, this is our democracy, this is our government, these are the leaders we've chosen and all of that? These are the questions. So whichever way you want to look at it, the influence of money in our politics as we speak now is clearly eroding the principles of democracy. The right to make informed choices is not there because people now make choices under the influence of money. But for every opportunity like this, we'll continue to tell Nigerians, when you mortgage the next 4 years, your children will not forgive you. Even your inner self. What do you do with the 15,000 naira you get? What does 15,000 naira give to you on the streets of this country now?
How long will it last?
Looking at the massive inflation that we are subjected to. 15,000 naira, what will it give to you? Look at the next 4 years. You are denied water, you are denied roads, you are denied all things that ordinarily should be made available to you just for 15,000. History will never be kind to you. So we'll continue to appeal to Nigerians. Can't we just look elsewhere other than these monies that are used to entice us on election day?
Are Nigerian educated enough, politically educated enough, and mobilized enough to collect money and refuse to vote, so that those who are accustomed to making use of money to influence political process will be checkmated by Nigerians? That's a very good question. And like, let me come again to also say, you are speaking as a journalist. Although you've been in the trenches before as a party leader, but you've been out for almost like 12, 13 years now. So you are not in tune with what is trending now. Let me tell you, I don't want to speculate. I also don't accept information that I have not tested on my own as a politician. But in 2015, yes, there was money everywhere according to Nigerians. That's why I'm saying that I don't want to speculate. But what happened? People still made their choices. That is in the broad spectrum. Now, let me reduce it to practical experiences I've had. Of course, on the way to 2019, you are aware that we held Bauchi down positively. We appealed to the youths, can we do this thing this way so that you people will be happy for the next 4 years? I'm not a Bauchi person. The then national chairman of the party, Dr. Boniface Anebunam, is also not a Bauchi person. But we decided to do a test run from Bauchi, which ordinarily I would have taken to Benue, which is my state, or ordinarily would have taken to Anambra, which is the home state of the then national chairman. But we decided to start somewhere from a neutral ground. We tested not just the efficacy of our manifesto, but also the strength of our constitution, and then other extant manifestos that are not, properly documented in the document. We decided to test it in Bauchi. You will be very amazed if I tell you that what we saw there gave me hope that our democracy is alive and that it's just a matter of time. Because in Bauchi, the youths came under huge influence of money, but they still made their choices. Go and check through the records. You'll see that it's only in Bauchi state that about 5 political parties were elected. That is, candidates of 5 political parties across various levels were elected in 2019. The PRP won election in Bauchi, NNPP won election in Bauchi, PDP won election in Bauchi, APC won election in Bauchi, and I think one other party, which I won't be able to recall. But I know by my counting then, there were about 5 political parties that won election. What does that say to you? It shows that despite the influence of money, the Bauchi electorate still did what was right. It's not as if they didn't take money. Yes, they would have taken money. I don't want to speculate. They would have taken money. But they still voted based on their personal convictions that they needed certain changes. And that was what metamorphosed into the election of candidates of 5 political parties. That never happened in any state. Go and check through the statistics. It's public notice in INEC. Now, your party, through some certain occurrence within the last few months, is crystallizing into one of the super party in Nigeria.
Not one, the number 1 party now in Nigeria.
That is your own opinion. It's crystallizing into one of the Nigerians. That is crystallizing into one of the super party in Nigeria. Would you now abandon that your test run in Bauchi and go the way of monetizing system? I take it on you.
No, the test run in Bauchi is what we are now going to broaden across the entire country. You understand?
Okay.
And we are going to go along the same line. The same way we went into the Bauchi election and won seats. Are you aware that we won Bauchi North senatorial seat? I don't want to talk too much about it on air.
Very good.
But I am always never able to avoid it because it pains me, you know, when our democracy is frustrated to that kind of level.
Now,
but I don't want to give details. So what I'm trying to let you know is that the test run in Bauchi was preparatory to what we want to now do in 2023. We are still going to go the same way. Of course, His Excellency Mohammed Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, as you know, you probably may not know because you are a media man, is one man that is so endeared to the people. He's very, very close to, especially the ordinary people, you know, and that's why anywhere you mention his name, he is there. The name is just very attractive. So we are going to go into the election with his name and his antecedents.
No, let us.
And we are going to do that, you know, and vigorously we'll be able to run out even those who are going to roll out money. With this man's antecedents, we'll be able to run out the PDP and APC that probably would be preparing to roll out money to buy votes.
If you look at something, the President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, consistently preaching against monetization of electoral process. Every governor in this country, I have never seen any one of them that is not speaking against monetization of process. Political aspirants and candidates, even in this Ekiti, I was listening to Oni, one of the contestants, vehemently speaking about the monetization of the process.
But later became...
Now, Serap is calling for the proof of his own party also, and the rest of it. Now, the sitting governor of the state also participated in the monetization of the process according to the report. His party participated. Now, with all of this in perspective, is our sense of right and wrong as political leaders, is it normal?
See, they always tell you that politics is all about interest. Sometimes these interests could be selfish interests. Sometimes there could be, you know, interests that, you know, aggregates the thinking of the people. There's a difference between what they come out to say to you. They know the vices. So they will always come out to tell you, we are aware that this is wrong, this is right, this is wrong, this is right. But back there, what they do is different from what they say. So the truth about it is that for their selfish reasons, they will always want to do that would give to them what they want. But in the open, they will always tell you they're on the side of what is right. So it's not an issue that one should even dwell on so much on air like this, because the truth you and I know is that if not, how do you ask yourself? The same Oni, for instance, that you talked about now, who spoke against vote buying and all of that, turned out to be one of those who were out there buying votes. So what are we talking about?
Because if governors are mobilizing resources for vote buying, if senators and ministers, and if presidential assistants are mobilizing money for vote buying and the rest of it, then who will correct the system? This is what Nigerians...
Nigerians. It's Nigerians that will correct the system.
Are we accepting all of this?
No. The electorates, as it stands now, even our laws will not be able to correct this, though they are there in the law. The organizations that are saddled with these responsibilities won't also be able to correct it. The correction can only be done by the electorates. By the time they give you money in 2 elections and discover that they lost, the third one, they won't bring money again.
If you want to see any change, preparatory to Osun election that we follow to this, what will that change want to be?
Well, I can tell you that the people should be more determined. The money will be there. They will still roll out the money. Those who have the money will still roll out the money. But I want to see determination on the part of the electorates to do what is right. They shouldn't give in to the pressure of this money. They should be able to elect people or a governor that will come to develop their state.
One word to the nation.
Let's be steadfast. We don't have any country than this. Our democracy is you know, evolving very fast, and we have to be steadfast in ensuring that...
Let us be steadfast with our democracy. Let us begin to correct vehemently all the abnormalities that can portray our democracy as aberrative from henceforth. Let our leaders, those who are leading, let them behave well and know that the choice of democracy in itself is a choice of the rule of law. We have been talking with Ambassador Major Abu. He was just conferred a honorary doctorate degree recently, last week. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And we hope you will always make yourself available to us when we beckon on you.
I'm always here. I'm a friend of the ITV.
That is how we draw the curtain on this first segment of discourse on nationalism. And you but don't change the channel, as the second discourse segment is coming almost immediately.